How can you, all that's just okay. How can you stop people that can actually hit?
What's happening with Lamont and Tank fight?
I don't get in the business on that side. You know, I'm just wait for whatever they go through, get it over with and done. And when Tank called me, I'm there. You know.
Gervonta Davis has hit back at Jake Paul after he revealed that he has been training with Tank's previous sparring partners. According to Tank, he is not surprised that one of his own turned against him, since he has been getting a lot of that lately. What he is sure of, though, is that this will not serve any advantage come fight night. This comes after it was Jake revealed that he has gathered a group of southpaw sparring partners to emulate Tank's style, and that includes one of Tank's. According to Jake, this will help him adapt to the style of a smaller fighter. In terms of sparring, we've got some great guys coming in, said Paul. Some really experienced southpaws that are smaller. I think Montana Love is coming in. Shakur Stevenson wants to come in. Jermaine Ortiz we're hitting up. Erickson Lubin, some of these guys. We're going to bring in a plethora of fighters that are fast, quick, shifty southpaws.
What weight would it be at?
195.
Oh, wow. So he would go all the way from 40 to 95?
Yeah, I mean, it would be an exhibition.
Okay. But, and so what does that mean? Is that 3-minute rounds?
Yeah, 10 3-minute rounds.
And when you say exhibition, like, what are the restrictions on that?
No restrictions, just the fact that like we couldn't actually get it professional.
The standout name on the list is WBC lightweight title holder Shakur Stevenson. The 3-weight world champion has been chasing a clash with Davis for several years to no avail. But with that fight seemingly off the table, at least for now, Stevenson has elected to join Davis's opposing camp instead. I think he wants to see how good I am and see how good I do against Tank, added Paul of Stevenson. Other names in his sparring list include Erickson Lubin, Jermaine Ortiz, and Montana Love. However, Tank is confident that none of these can outdo him in the ring, and the only reality check Jake Paul will get is when he gets in the ring with him.
He said, fat. So I said, you got to take him serious. You get what I'm saying? Because he talked about, he had you on a hit list before this fight even happened. So his mental is on you. So you have to take him serious.
Jake Paul isn't hiding his approach for Gervonta Tank Davis. He's going big, literally. His whole game plan revolves around size, power, and pressure. Paul's coming in close to 195 pounds, towering over the naturally smaller Davis, who built his entire career around speed and explosiveness at lightweight. For Jake, that physical gap is the entire key. He plans to use his reach to dictate space, keep the fight long when it suits him, then step in and lean on Tank whenever the distance closes. It's a blueprint meant to drain the smaller man's gas tank, forcing him into the kind of fight that benefits size over skill.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big. Tank ain't gonna be able to get in from that jab. Jake land one good punch on.
In training footage and interviews, Paul has emphasized tempo and volume, mixing bursts of aggression with controlled pacing. He knows Tank is a sniper who thrives on timing mistakes, and to win, Jake has to stay disciplined, throw without overcommitting, and avoid giving Davis the split-second windows he uses to end fights. His team's focus has been on structure and consistency, building a style that's more systematic than emotional. The idea is to make Tank chase, frustrate him with movement and bodywork, and turn what's supposed to be a boxing showcase into a war of attrition.
199 pounds with a 6'4" wingspan. Tank, 5'5", 133 pounds, a 5'7" wingspan. Tank fighting me would be a fairer matchup. We're basically the same size. And you wonder why fans think Jake's fights are rigged? Because every time we see some nonsense like this, it feels like WWE with boxing gloves. Here's the kicker though. Jake threatened to sue anyone who calls his fights rigged. Yeah, you know, the same guy who preaches freedom of speech now wants to ban him.
And while Paul's usual trash talk hasn't slowed down, mocking Davis's height and cracking jokes about ending him early, the underlying intent isn't just to sell the fight. He has even brought up Tank's history against women just to get under his skin. Tank Davis, on the other hand, sees right through it. His tone toward Paul has been consistent, amused, unimpressed, and uninterested in matching his energy. When asked about Jake's supposed advantages, he shrugged it off. He's just big. That's it, Davis said recently. He's not faster. He's not sharper. He's just another guy who thinks weight wins fights.
And of which you have none of. Hank is telling anybody that will listen that there's a size problem. My skills and my experience in boxing, I do not have to wonder who's in the bar tonight. Any bar I go to, I rule the bar. No, it turns out that you don't. Just need some big guy to corner you, apparently. Boxing has never stood its ground. Boxing has never been able to explain why Floyd needed a half hour to get rid of a guy who's never boxed before. Hank Davis has already began this.
Tank's whole camp views Jake's power as overrated. Trainer Calvin Ford has said repeatedly that they've faced stronger men in sparring and survived nastier punchers. Their issue isn't the size, it's the rules. The fight's 12-ounce gloves, Ford argues, favor the heavier man. He's pushed for 8-ounce gloves for Tank and 10-ounce for Paul, but even then, he insists the difference won't save Jake. It only matters if you can hit him, Ford told reporters. And Tank's not gonna let him.
Wait, Jake Paul versus Tank Davis? But Jake Paul's biggest strength be the very thing that takes him down. Confidence built his empire. He believes no one can break him. But Tank Davis isn't like anyone Jake's faced before. Tank doesn't talk for hype, he hits to end it. If Jake walks into that ring thinking this is another
Davis is entering this matchup with the same approach that's carried him through his entire career. Patience, precision, and timing. He doesn't waste movement, doesn't chase knockouts, he studies, waits, and detonates when the time's right. Against Paul, that patience could be deadly. The YouTuber tends to fall into predictable rhythms after a few rounds. Tank knows it and plans to exploit it. Every time Jake overreaches with the jab, every time he tries to smother with weight, Davis will be looking to slip, pivot, and counter.
Going on. I guess Tank is going broke because that's the only justifiable reason you ruin your legacy against a guy like Jake Paul. And yes, I do think Jake Paul is going to win. Tank Davis is a much better boxer and has crazy power, but he's 5'5", 130. That power is not going to carry over against someone who is 6'1", 210. And it's not like...
What's thrown fans off is Tank's body language leading up to the fight. He's not hyped up or performing for the cameras. He's been calm, even detached, almost as if he's taking the whole thing as a business move. But that calm hides confidence.
Up there and actually retire, get the out of the sport, because he's been, making claims saying that he's done and that he's about to retire. Basically, he doesn't want to no more. And I feel like, he got the big fight, and there's really no bigger fight than this. There's just no bigger fight than this, bro. At first, people were saying...
In fact, Davis has been clear that he doesn't view Paul as a threat in terms of boxing IQ. He's called him mechanical, saying that while Jake's improved, his rhythm is easy to read. He fights like he's thinking too much, Tank told reporters. You can see when he's about to throw. That's not how real fighters move. That's the gap Davis intends to exploit. Instinct versus imitation.
It's kind of weird. Because Jake Paul is extremely bigger than Tank. And but with it being a exhibition, it makes sense.
Paul's challenge will be sticking to his plan when the pressure flips. Once Tank closes distance and starts tagging him, can he stay composed and disciplined? His power is real, but so is Tank's timing. The moment Paul slows, the smaller man's explosiveness becomes a problem. Tank's corner believes that Jake's conditioning won't hold through sustained speed and accuracy.
Netflix is in the business of making big fights, bigger fights, big events, things that millions of people tune into. One of the ways that they do that is they roll out Jake Paul. They rolled out Jake Paul against Mike Tyson. It broke Netflix. Jake Paul fought with Tyron Woodley twice. Big numbers. Jake Paul fought against Tommy Fury. Big numbers. Jake Paul...
Paul's people believe Davis can't hurt him enough to matter. Both sides are confident, but for entirely different reasons. And as for the sparring talk that started it all, Davis couldn't care less who Paul brings in. Whether it's a former partner or a future opponent, he says they can all train him, but none can save him. He can bring the whole gym, Tank said. He's still too easy for me.
Bro, you can't be mad at somebody for doing what they feel is best for them.
Will it impact Tank's legacy if Jake Paul were to beat him or even knock him out?
Dude, Tank's a 3-division world champion, 4-time 3-division world champion. At the end of it, bro, you can't take anything away from him. Bro, you can't be mad at somebody for doing what they feel is best for them. It's the same way Roach feels Tank is the best option for him. Same way that Steven.
Kenny Ellis and Calvin Ford are steering Gervonta Davis into this Jake Paul showdown with the kind of sharp, methodical focus you'd expect from a team that's seen every style come and go. They're not treating Paul like a YouTuber anymore. They're treating him like a real problem that needs a real solution. And that solution, according to Ellis and Ford, starts in the trenches, in the clinch, in the timing, in the details.
My only concern is, the gloves. You understand what I'm saying? Because we don't fight in 12-ounce gloves. We don't use 12-ounce gloves. That's training gloves, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, that's 2 pounds away from...
In camp, Ellis has been drilling Tank on clinch control, not flashy combos or mitt showmanship, but the dirty, unglamorous part of boxing that wins fights. They have showed it in training clips. Tank's hands locked inside, elbows tight, chin tucked, no lazy ties. Ellis keeps reminding him, no dead grips. It's clear they expect Jake Paul to lean, to wrestle, to turn this into a physical fight. The goal is to make sure Tank doesn't get smothered or bullied inside. If Paul tries to push him back, Tank's ready to pop out, pivot, and fire. They're basically neutralizing Jake's size before it even becomes a factor. And speaking of size, Ellis isn't buying it. He's been repeating that old-school line, height don't fight. To him, Paul's bigger frame means nothing if Tank can touch him clean first. That's been a theme all camp long. Forget the weight difference. Focus on the skill gap. Ellis and Ford have both echoed that Tank's timing, precision, and defensive instincts make him the naturally superior fighter. They're using that idea to keep the mood in camp grounded. It's not about matching Jake physically, it's about making him look clumsy.
Tank looked very uncomfortable facing off. He just did. I've seen other face-off this Tank done. He gets in their face and they're intense and he looks good. He looked very meager up there. You've had 8 fights and you're gonna go tangle with Tank Davis. And the story instantly comes out. Jake is so much bigger. There is such a compliment to Jake within that insult. It is meant to be an insult. It is meant to take away from a potential.
Ellis has also been sending little psychological jabs in interviews, hinting that Paul's technical base still has holes. He said more than once that Jake doesn't know what to do when things don't go his way. What he's really saying is that once Tank forces Jake to miss, or once Jake's best shot doesn't budge him, the confidence will start to drain. They're preparing to expose what Ellis calls Paul's mechanical rhythm. He believes Jake gets predictable once he starts pressing forward, and that's exactly when Tank plans to launch those explosive counters.
Jake is big, Tank has a lot of skill, but I don't think he's the same Tank that we saw the most incredible knockouts. We saw him, Lamont Roach performed great. They went to draw, and, I just don't know. And Tank walked away. I don't know if he loves it enough to beat a guy who outweighs him by 80 to 100 pounds.
Both coaches know Jake Paul isn't the kind of opponent you underestimate. He's big, he's motivated, and he's improving. But the Ellis-Ford game plan is clear. Make Jake overcommit, lure him into range, and punish him for every mistake. If Jake tries to muscle Tank around, they've worked on that. If he tries to box smart, Tank's speed and timing are their answer.
MMA fighters and all of that. When you go get an actual real boxer, for real boxer, who is a knockout artist, who is still in his prime, and now you put him in this exhibition, this just shows me right now that the sport is officially gone, and the only hope we have is September 13th, Canelo and Bud Crawford. Because
they're preparing for everything, countering off the back foot, slipping under the jab, exploding on the reset. But even then, pros close to Jake were saying the same thing. It doesn't matter who Jake brings in, it's not going to give him what he's looking for.
What do you think about the rumors that Tank and Jake might fight?
Man, Tank disrespectful to the sport if he choose that over fighting with me. I'm the best fighter in the sport. I've been telling him that. And he called cap on it. So if he won't call cap and say I'm not who I say I am, come prove it. I think it's dangerous for him to go back in there and fight Lamont. I think Lamont is a hell of a fighter.
Shakur's whole thing is timing and composure, the exact things that make Tank so dangerous. You can copy the stance, the southpaw rhythm, the shoulder feints, but you can't copy how Tank sets traps mid-combination. That's what gets people. Shakur knows that better than most. So if he really does step in as a sparring partner, Jake's just getting a small taste of what he's about to face. Nothing more.
Jake Paul Tank Davis fight got moved to Miami.
I think Jake wins.
Jake's just so big, dude.
I think Jake wins.
This is different because it's similar. It's similar to Logan versus Mayweather, but
Jake has
Jake
better
Paul
boxing.
now obviously is way more advanced than where Logan was at that moment in time.
However, even with Shakur in Jake's camp, he had already admitted that he doesn't give Jake Paul a chance. When asked if Paul has any realistic shot at beating Gervonta Davis, he simply says no. He respects Jake's size, but doesn't see that as enough to shift the outcome. Size will play some part of the fight, Stevenson explains. But if I'm thinking like I'm Tank, I'm probably just going to try and go out there and outbox him and use my knowledge and IQ against him. Stevenson pictures Davis controlling the ring and making it look simple. I could see Tank outboxing him and making it look real easy, he adds. He doesn't expect a knockout, though. I don't see Tank knocking Jake out. No, for him, the path is clear. Tank wins on skill, composure, and timing, not brute force.
Maybe he'll fight Jake Paul instead. What do you think of that?
I think that's terrible.
Why?
I mean, I get it because at the end of the day, it's the money business, and you want to make the most money. But from what I'm hearing, he can make more money in a fight with me. And if that's the case, why not fight me?
Sure. Do you think he beats Jake Paul?
Do I think he beats Jake? Yeah. I mean,
Ryan Garcia, on the other hand, treats the whole idea of the matchup with disbelief. He doesn't think it even makes sense for Tank to take the fight under those weight conditions. I strongly doubt this happens, he writes online. No way Gervonta accepted 195 pounds. Gervonta is already small naturally, and you really think he will decide to balloon up to 195 pounds.
This will be an exhibition bout. It will not count towards their professional careers. The age is close. Jake Paul is 28, Gervonta Davis is 30, but the weight difference is massive. Paul has fought around 200 to 227 pounds. Davis dominated at just 135 pounds. Many expected Davis to fight Lamont Roach Jr. again, but instead he chose Jake Paul, a fight many say is more about money than legacy. Critics suggest Davis doesn't want.
Still, if it does happen, Ryan admits where his money would go. If the fight does happen, I'd bet on the heavyweight. It's a dry, sarcastic jab, but it says what he believes, that the weight advantage alone could be decisive. His frustration seems deeper, though. He sees the matchup as a symptom of where boxing is heading. This just proves that the new blueprint is to be popular and be a decent fighter. Pick fights to win that give you an advantage. Integrity of the sport is getting ruined every day. To him, it's not just about Tank or Jake. It's about what boxing has turned into. Spectacle first, credibility second. Mikey Garcia's take is more traditional. He sees through the size narrative and calls it how most old-school fighters would. I think Tank's gonna win, he says. Even though people think, oh, the size advantage, yeah, but Jake Paul's not a fighter. If he was a real high-level contender, then the biggest man would win. But Jake is not an A-level fighter. He isn't dismissing Jake completely, but he's blunt about the gap in pedigree. Tank has spent years fighting elite competition and winning under pressure. Jake has fought a mix of MMA names and mid-level boxers. Mikey doesn't believe that kind of resume can prepare anyone for a fighter like Davis, who's made a career of punishing mistakes and finding openings within seconds.
Do you think that it's fair to call them boxers now? We talk about Logan brothers.
I think it's okay to call Jake Paul a boxer. The only reason why I say that is because he do be in the gym. He's working on stuff. The fight that he fought Mike Tyson, I don't think he should have fought Mike Tyson because of who Mike Tyson is and the age. And he said that he didn't try to knock him out. Yes, you did. You just couldn't get the knockout.
Jake Paul, as always, keeps things simple and loud. He says he's not coming to outbox Tank, he's coming to put him out. This fight is not going the distance, he promises. Someone's going to sleep, and it's not me. Paul's confidence feeds his following. He knows how to make people pick sides. To him, Tank's reputation doesn't intimidate, it motivates. Jake sees the fight as a defining moment where he gets to prove that he's more than a YouTuber who boxes for clicks. He's been training with bigger names, stacking up sparring footage, and repeating that same line in interviews. Tank's too small and power equalizes everything. It's the same strategy that won him fights against smaller men like Nate Diaz and Tyron Woodley. But this time, he's not fighting a 40-year-old or an ex-wrestler. Tank's fast, disciplined, and built for moments like this.
I believe that this is a mismatch, and I believe that Jake Paul will knock Tank Davis out, maybe in the third, maybe in the fourth round. Tank will try to move, he will try to stick and move. It's not gonna work out for him, and he will eventually get knocked out. To be honest,
From Tank's corner, the idea of using Tank experience and speed makes sense, considering Jake will be naturally slow because of his weight. But then, Jake is convinced he only has to land one big punch on Tank to put him to sleep. But what game plan do you think will work? Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more updates.